Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm afternoon. Thank you for all for joining us for the 24th edition of the World Sustainable Summit. Before we commence the function today, a brief safety announcement during the event here at the Stein Auditorium. TERI is Health, Safety and Environment Certified Organization. In case of any untoward incident like fire, evacuation is required. You're required to exit from this auditorium through the fire exit gates nearest to you without any panic. There are 7 exit gates for this auditorium, 4 on the ground floor. There is 1 exit on the stage and 2 exits on the balcony, which are the entrances to the balcony. In the case of fire, fire marshals will take position in the aisles and exit gates to help you to evacuate. Now may I take the distinct honor to invite our esteemed panelists to this momentous occasion and grace the dais. A warm round of applause for all our distinguished panelists. Mr. Shombi, United Nations Resident Coordinator in India. Mr. Mohammed Golam Sarwar, Secretary General, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Mr. Hiroshi Ono, Executive Director, Institute for Global Environment Strategies. Dr. Julie Revere, Country Director, GIZ, India. Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. Dr. Purvi Mehta, Senior Advisor, Global Growth and Opportunities, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Ms. Dejan Sering, Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific, United Nations Environment Programme. The session we are about to begin, Achieving Sustainable Development Through Integrated Action, is a critical discussion on fostering collaboration across sectors, regions, and institutions to address sustainable development challenges. As we stand at the crossroads of climate action, economic growth, and social equity, integrated solutions and partnerships are more important than ever. Today's discussions will highlight diverse perspectives on accelerating sustainable development through holistic and collective efforts. To lead this significant dialogue, we invite our distinguished chair, Mr. Shombi, United Nations Resident Coordinator in India, to deliver his opening remarks and take the proceedings ahead. Sir, may I have you on stage?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, let me just start and say apologies. I just put a Mentos in my mouth right before. Give me 1 second. But just to say that first to thank TERI for this, the amazing work over 5 decades in terms of fostering change around sustainability, and also introducing this incredible World Sustainable Development Summit series that has, if I'm not mistaken, been running now for almost 25 years, bringing us all together. I know it's been a really packed few days, so very pleased that we could be coming in here at the end of the day on a beautiful Friday. And on behalf of the United Nations system here in India, it's my pleasure to offer you आप सभी को UN परिवार की तरफ से मेरा नमस्कार. Thank you. And also, getting ahead of things, I don't know if you know, but tomorrow is International Women's Day. And I think everyone can agree that हर दिन महिला दिवस होना चाहिए. So it's very appropriate. Every day really should be celebrated as Women's Day, so mentioning that in advance. So I think we have a superstar panel set here today for you, and I think it's really going to be exciting. So I will just go ahead and say a few words by way of sort of scene setting like that, and then we're going to get right into the conversation here. I'll ask each of our wonderful panelists sort of a leading question. We can hear their responses. We'll have time for Q&A, definitely for sure. So I think just to start, it goes without saying, I mean, anybody who has a device or reads the news or what, and certainly in the last few days here, have been understanding we're living in a time of incredible, I mean, this is like some sort of an inflection point, a time of great consequences. So we have more disruption than we've seen in a long time. We have more divisions, and it is a time for decision more than ever. If we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the world came together at the General Assembly, Compact for the Future, and the Global Digital Compact, and reiterated just at the end of last year that the Sustainable Development Goals remain our lodestar as a global community. And yet, we're woefully off track. I know you've heard the number before. Something like 83% of SDG targets are off track. Global debt is surging, $300 trillion plus, a record. 60% of low-income countries in debt distress. Well over half of countries are paying more in terms of debt financing than they can invest in health and education. And at the same time, as the Secretary General says, we continue to wage war on nature, and the planet is fighting back. We see the warmest now year on record last year. It used to be you'd have to go search through the years, when was the warmest? Now it just seems like you just look at the most recent. Warmest 5 years, last 5 years. Warmest 10, last 10 years. And this nonlinear curve, absolutely frightening. Realizing that our children will look back, despite the warmest year on record here. They'll look back and they'll say, can you imagine how cool it was in those days when we were growing up? So, 1.2 billion people over can be displaced, climate refugees, basically. Ocean temperatures are rising, and the colleagues are going to speak in much more detail about all of these things. Now, this was supposed to be a moment, a confluence of many milestones. It's the 80th anniversary of the United Nations itself, the world coming together to agree universal values and universal truths. It's the Beijing Plus 30, where women's empowerment, gender equality is fully recognized for the first time across the board and action put behind it. It's the Sustainable Development Goals, 10th anniversary as well, the SDGs. We're in the second half now to the SDGs. And yet, exactly at this moment when it seemed sort of stars are aligned, we see that suddenly some stars are very much out of alignment, and we see corners of the world pulling away from working together, away from multilateralism. So I think this is, the moment of the hour is to come back together. We need peace, because you can't have sustainable development without peace. We need solidarity. We need just transitions. We need action. And of course, we need gender equality underpinning all of that. So I think let's go ahead and get into the conversation. Of course, this is going to be about not just the problems, but the solutions, and hearing from really insightful commentators that we have here today. I believe first we will start with some video introductions, video comments, and beginning with Mr. Junhua, Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs of the United Nations. So if we are ready to roll that. Oh, very sorry. Okay, there's an intro clip of the session. So let's go ahead and do that first. Thank you.
We are living in a time of polycrisis. From planetary crises to conflicts threatening world peace and a backslide in key sustainable development goals, the challenges are vast and interconnected. sustainable development and environmental stewardship must be prioritized at all levels and across all spheres. Yet the world is off track to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. According to the latest progress report on SDGs, only 14% of the 169 targets are on track, while 14% show regression in critical areas like hunger, education, employment, and the environment. 20% of targets are not event-tracked. The SDGs are inherently interconnected. Progress on one depends on others. Achieving these goals demands unprecedented collective action, dismantling barriers, and fostering collaboration across sectors. However, political, environmental, and economic activities often remain siloed, obstructing systemic solutions. Tools like green budgeting, sustainable procurement, and regulatory frameworks must be prioritized to mainstream sustainability. This session will explore critical questions such as identifying and addressing systemic barriers, implementing effective tools, and fostering collaborations to advance sustainable development globally. Achieving the SDGs requires dismantling silos, fostering integrated action, and ensuring collective efforts across governments, businesses, and civil society. Join us as we explore solutions to mainstream sustainability, accelerate SDG progress, and build a future rooted in equity, peace, and resilience.
Thank you. I think that was really good. I don't know, is it working, audible? Yes. Okay. Very good. Thank you for that inspiring introductory video. So now I think we can go to Mr. Junhua, Undersecretary General of the United Nations for Economic and Social Affairs, who of course is the Sherpa for G20 and contributing in so many different ways in terms of global agreements around economic and social action.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I'm pleased to address the 2025 World Sustainable Development Summit. I thank the Energy and Resources Institute for this opportunity. We actually meet at a critical juncture. In 2024, global temperatures surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels for the first time. It is a very stark warning. The current policies project a catastrophic 3.1 degree rise by the end of the century. Meanwhile, only 17% of the SDG targets are on track, and 1/3 have stalled or regressed. The expert group on climate and SDG synergies, co-convened by the UNDP and the UNFCCC, confirms that tackling climate change and sustainable development in isolation is counterproductive. We must integrate and coordinate our efforts. Climate change, poverty, and inequality are deeply interconnected, demanding holistic cross-sectoral solutions. This is why strengthening the multilateral cooperation is more urgent than ever before. UNDP remains committed to working with member states, international organizations, civil society, private sector, and other stakeholders to drive the meaningful action and advance the innovative solutions. Our success hinges on leveraging synergies and managing trade-offs. The climate and the SDG synergy conferences have demonstrated how climate action is central to achieving the SDGs. The global stocktake at the COP28 highlighted the critical need to align the climate ambitions with sustainable development. The Pact for the Future reinforces our shared responsibility to act with purpose and urgency. The establishment of the new climate finance goal at COP29 marked a positive step forward. But collectively, we have to do more to ensure these commitments translate into concrete, scaled-up investments in developing countries. 2025 presents key opportunities for accelerated actions. The 6th Global Synergies Conference will catalyze integrated solutions for climate and sustainable development. The 4th International Conference on Financing for Development will provide an opportunity to mobilize resources at a scale. The next round of the nationally determined contributions submissions will be critical in setting the ambition for the decade ahead. And at the COP30 in Golam, we must ensure the global community delivers bold commitments to advance the climate justice, just energy transitions, and sustainable development. Similarly, the Ocean Conference has reinforced the urgency of the marine sustainability, recognizing that a healthy planet depends on healthy oceans. However, more is needed. Rising emissions and slow progress on SDGs demand urgent coordinated actions. National development and climate policies must be strengthened, financing scaled up and solutions made inclusive, ensuring no one is left behind. The United Nations stands ready to support countries in integrating the SDGs into national development and climate policies through its policy analysis and capacity building support. Together, we can accelerate the SDG achievement, combat climate change, and build a resilient, equitable future for all. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No, I think that was very outlining very important directions, again, of collective global action. And a bit in that same vein, next we have Mr. Achim Steiner, also joining us by video message, administrator of the United Nations Development Program, former boss of mine a while back, so it will be nice to see him on the screen as well. But he also serves as vice chair of the UN Sustainable Development Group and was previously leading UN Environment as well, so bringing lots and lots of experience. Let's roll the video from Mr. Steiner.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to contribute to the 2025 World Sustainable Development Summit through this brief video message. It presents a platform to reflect on the urgent challenges confronting our global community as well as the major strides forward we have made, including in human development. In India alone, over 400 million people exited multidimensional poverty within just 15 years, a testament to the power of unified, concerted and deliberate action. However, global progress has come at a steep cost, from an escalating climate crisis to the ongoing degradation of our natural world and growing inequalities. At the same time, the landscape of development is rapidly shifting. Nowhere is this more evident than in the energy transition. Global renewable energy capacity is projected to grow 2.7 times by the year 2030, approaching the ambitious COP28 target of tripling capacity. India exemplifies this progress, with renewables now comprising over 2/5 of its installed power capacity. Yet bridging the gap between developing and developed economies will require bolder approaches in critical areas like trade, finance, climate, and industry. So how do we craft the conditions that drive sustainability and accelerate progress and collaboration? Multilateral collaboration and cooperation remains a cornerstone of addressing global development challenges like climate change. This vision drives the United Nations Development Programme's Climate Promise Initiative. Now, in its most critical phase, UNDP is currently supporting over 80 countries to craft ambitious, third-generation, nationally determined contributions ahead of the critical COP30 meeting in Brazil later this year. These efforts can keep the 1.5-degree goal within reach and bring far-reaching benefits. UNDP analysis shows that when bold climate actions align with the Sustainable Development Goals, an additional 60 million people globally could be lifted out of poverty by the decade's end. Not a trade-off, but actually an acceleration. This is why the Climate Promise 2025 is helping to design NDCs that attract more public and private investment to drive progress across the SDGs. Such partnerships will be essential on a much broader scale. Innovation must meet opportunity, especially as developing nations outside of China receive just 15% of global clean energy investments currently. The groundbreaking Africa Mini-Grids program, led by UNDP, seeks to help close this gap. It represents a $65 billion investment opportunity to initially connect 33 million people to solar electricity across 21 countries in Africa. By leveraging cost reduction measures and de-risking finance, solar mini-grids can deliver new opportunities and transformative returns on investment. Yet there is a clear need to address the fragmentation of international initiatives. That means better connecting efforts like the Africa Mini-Grids program, the Mission 300, the G7's Energy for Growth initiative, to mention but a few, to scale clean energy through collaboration. Local partnerships also remain central. Look to India, where UNDP is today partnering with a Just Transition Task Force in the coal-dependent state of Jharkhand. This initiative, perhaps the first of its kind in the world, works with diverse stakeholders to help communities acquire new skills and establish a transition fund to support this shift away from fossil fuels. Innovative financing is and remains key to unlocking these transitions. Consider Uruguay's sovereign sustainability-linked performance bond, valued at $1.5 billion. Its innovative mechanism reduces interest rates when the country exceeds its NDC targets, offering a powerful model and incentive. Or take the Access project in Indonesia. Powered by a public-private partnership, it has rolled out 22 off-grid solar power plants, providing sustainable energy and new opportunities to over 20,000 people. Such initiatives demonstrate that by unlocking investments that reward sustainability, we can forge a pathway where people and the planet thrive in tandem. Ladies and gentlemen, in an era marked by intense geostrategic competition and even isolation, consistency and collaboration have never been more vital. In this regard, the United Nations is much more than a platform. It is a dynamic engine that delivers transformative solutions, partnerships, financing, and opportunity closer to the communities that need them most. Indeed, the Energy and Resources Institute's unique ability to unite diverse voices and bring bold ideas to life is a crucial partner and asset in this approach. The Pact for the Future of the United Nations outlines a clear pathway to progress. Sustainable development is not just merely a goal to pursue, but a legacy we must actively build for ourselves today and for generations who will inherit the world we create. In that spirit, I wish you a most productive summit. Notwithstanding all the challenges we face, the direction of travel is clear, and we are very much part of it. Thank you.
Excellent. I think, again, very clearly setting the direction of travel, Mr. Steiner there, and the sort of the global leadership of the United Nations coming together, which is, again, it's not the institution of the United Nations, it's the member states, it's India, it's every country here coming together. So with that, now we turn to our in-person live panel. Again, a superstar panel, and we do have a lot of important voices to hear. So I'll try not to make it like intellectual speed dating, but we'll ask everybody, try to stick to sort of the 5 minutes in the initial round, and then we'll come back if we have time, and definitely we want to have Q&A. So I will start, and this is absolutely arbitrary, just according to the schedule here. I'll start with you, Mr. Sarwar, who is the 15th Secretary General of SARC, of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, regional intergovernmental organization promoting economic and regional integration among 8 member states of South Asia. And of course, you, sir, have been an ambassador in a number of different countries as well prior to assuming this role. So I think the question to you, quite simply, would be, in this time when, unfortunately, many are kind of looking to put themselves first, how can SARC foster all-important dialogue and action on climate and sustainable development and people-to-people connections? Over to you.
Is the desk?
Absolutely, yes. It's up to you if you like to sit or deliver from there.
Thank
That's
you.
fine. Thank you.
Respected moderator, distinguished panelists, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to address you today on a matter of paramount importance to the future of South Asia, achieving the sustainable development through integrated action. Our region, home of 1/4 of the global population, stands at the critical juncture. We face both immense opportunities and profound challenges in our pursuit of the prosperous and sustainable future. The South Asian region is particularly prone to the climate changes and related disaster, making regional response more urgent and compelling. The world is falling behind on achieving the sustainable development goals. As part of the intergovernmental exercise to contextualize the SDGs in SARC region and to accelerate the progress, a study was recently done to assess the status of implementation of SDGs in the SARC member countries and to recommend the measures. The study finds that as we pass the midpoint of the implementing of 2030 agenda, the South Asia region is not on track on most of the SDGs. The SDG index prepared by Sustainable Development Solution Network for each of the South Asian countries shows that overall progress towards achieving SDGs has marginally increased in 2024 compared to 2016. According to the study findings, out of 140 measures target, only 18 targets are on track, and the 37 targets have registered regression against the baseline, implying that the region requires a rapid acceleration programs. To successfully implement the Agenda 2030, active mobilization of the spheres of activities is required. Those are the imperative of integrated action. Some countries in the region could face GDP loss exceeding 20%, including Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan due to the climate change. This economic vulnerability underscores that urgent need for robust and integrated climate actions which would ensure that the ecological balance starting from the high Himalayas to the deep down to the ocean is not further disrupted. To realize our sustainable development goals, we must mainstream the sustainability into the core of our economic and governance structure. The Global Sustainable Development Report of the United Nations emphasized that progress has been halted in many areas as a consequence of the confluence of this crisis. This requires a fundamental shift in how to approach the development, integrating environmental and social consideration into all aspects of policy and decision making. Several key tools and frameworks can facilitate this transformation, which are green budgeting, sustainable procurement, green investment, prioritizing regulatory works, and so on and so forth. As the theme of the World Sustainable Development Summit emphasized, the partnerships are crucial to accelerating the sustainable development and climate solutions. Government, businesses, civil society organizations, and international institutions must work together in a spirit of collaboration and shared responsibility to achieve this common goal. Insofar SARC is concerned, the SARC Disaster Management Center plays a crucial role in contributing to the achievement of the several sustainable development goals in South Asia. By strengthening disaster resilience, disaster risk reduction strategies, and climate change-induced disaster, it directly supports attaining of the goal of poverty alleviation by helping vulnerable communities in recover and reduce the economic impact of disaster. The SARC Agriculture Center plays a pivotal role in coordinating and supporting the climate-smart agriculture initiatives across the member states, fostering a collaborative approach to climate-smart farming. The SARC Agriculture Center has been instrumental in encouraging the research on climate-smart agriculture technologies and practices tailored to the South Asian unique agro-climate conditions. This includes research on drought-resistant crops, sustainable soil management, and effective water use practices. SARC Energy Center is trying hard to convert energy challenges into the opportunities for the development of the region. It is involved with the stakeholders to tap the potential in hydropower and other renewable and alternative energy, promoting technology transfer, energy trade, energy conservation, and efficiency improvement in the SARC region. SARC Development Fund has been contributing significantly in the UN Sustainable Development Goals by financing and implementing projects that promote regional cooperation and socio-economic development across the SARC member state, which includes projects that enhance the livelihood of smallholder farmers through climate-smart agriculture. I am pleased to announce that the South Asia University has also decided to establish an interdisciplinary center on climate change, green transition, and sustainability in its campus in New Delhi. Additionally, integrating climate change education into the curriculum of SARC is essential in promoting the future generations to understand and address the challenges of rapidly changing environment, ensuring that education remains relevant and impactful in today's world. Finally, and most importantly, in SARC, Thimphu's statement of climate change adopted by the SARC leaders in the 10th SARC Summit highlights the importance of regional commitments to act unitedly against the climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving sustainable development goal in South Asia requires a paradigm shift towards integrated actions, mainstream sustainability, and fostering strong partnership by embracing green budgeting, sustainable procurement, green investment, and robust regulatory framework. We can unlock this region's vast potentials, build resilience to climate change, and create a brighter, more equitable future for all. In order to harness the vast potential of the South Asia region, firm political commitments, deep understanding among the member states, and comprehensive action to further solidify regional cooperation is the best way to face the challenges of climate change and attain the SDG at a faster pace. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarwar. And of course, given the absolute critical importance of South Asia, it's wonderful to hear about all of these important actions on energy transition, green economy, and paradigm shifts. We will next go. I'll just make a quick, change in the schedule because I realize I just spoke about Women's Day and we have men just speaking all at the beginning. So I'll just do a quick little change. I'll jump to Dr. Julie Riviere, who is the country director for GIZ, and I dare not try to pronounce that in German, the full title of GIZ. But anyway, I hope that alles gut, sehr gut. And Dr. Riviere is the, leading this very robust GIZ portfolio. Have here, according to the numbers, around 64 million euros portfolio across all manners of sectors and across India as well. So very much looking forward to hearing from you the perspective from GIZ.
Since tomorrow is Women's Day, so I'm going to thank Purvi for being here, Shombi, I have to look, Soumya, and Mr. Golam, Ms. Deshan, and Mr. Hiroshi, and of course Shombi. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for having me stand in front of you. It is certainly wonderful to be here to speak at the Achieving Sustainable Development through Integrated Action session. This dialogue takes place, as we all know, at a very pivotal and very important moment when the world is grappling with unprecedented challenges, including runaway climate change, escalating biodiversity loss, widening socioeconomic disparities, and the increasing urgency to transition to a low-carbon and resilient economy. These crises demand immediate and coordinated responses. The interconnected nature of these challenges affects us all, and addressing them requires a collaborative approach that navigates complexities efficiently. And only by working together can we develop sustainable and impactful solutions. Recognizing our shared responsibility to protect the planet, ensure inclusive and sustainable growth, and leave no one behind, Indo-German cooperation remains aligned with the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. Germany's International Climate Initiative, IGES, exemplifies this commitment by supporting the UNFCCC and CBD processes. It plays a crucial role in accelerating India's implementation of its nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement and its targets under the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. This includes efforts to adapt to climate change, conserve and restore natural carbon sinks, and address environmental, economic, and social concerns. We are currently running 28 IGES projects that are being implemented across India in collaboration with a variety of partners, state governments, and implementation agencies. These projects focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, adapting to climate change, conserving biodiversity, and enhancing carbon sinks. Through these initiatives, IGES supports climate action in a holistic and integrated manner. This partnership is really a remarkable success story, one that continues to evolve as we collectively strive to advance sustainable development. To further accelerate these commitments, Prime Minister Modi and our Chancellor Scholz signed the Indo-German Green and Sustainable Development Partnership in May 2022. And their continued engagement, including high-level meetings in 2024, underscores the strength and dynamism of Indo-German relations. This partnership prioritizes climate change mitigation, resource efficiency, and sustainable urban development, ensuring that projects align with the interconnected nature of the SDGs. Key areas include, for instance, renewable energy adaptation. We are supporting decentralized solutions such as solar microgrids, enhancing local capacity through training, and fostering Indo-German collaboration to localize and implement innovative technologies. Sustainable urban development. We are promoting green infrastructure, sustainable mobility systems, and resource-efficient urban planning to make cities more sustainable and resilient. Also, climate adaptation and disaster risk management are being integrated into urban development to create low-carbon, livable urban spaces. Sustainable agriculture. Agricultural practices are being enhanced through organic farming, climate-resilient cropping, and environmentally sustainable techniques. Resource efficiency and circular economy. We encourage sustainable production methods, waste reduction, and circular economy practices to minimize resource dependency and environmental impact. Through these initiatives, the Indo-German partnership demonstrates the power of integrated action in achieving sustainable development. As we move forward, let us continue to strengthen our collaboration, scale up innovative solutions, and reaffirm our commitment to a more sustainable and equitable future. That is not it, because now I would like to add some words that are not written on paper. I would like to talk about enhancing collaboration, but at the same time we heard that we are really lagging behind. So more of the same is maybe not enough. And I have been wondering over the last few years, this is my 8th year in India, what really could be done. All of you are sitting here because you all have an interest in the topic and you all believe in it. But more policies and more money necessarily does not really bring us further It's important, but not enough. So I would really like to talk about you as an individual, that I think all of us need to feel empowered to do something on the seats that we are sitting on. Be it in an organization, be it in an office of some UN, be it as an ambassador somewhere, be it as a general secretary, be it as the director of GIZ, be it an intern in a company. All of us, I think, can do more. I live in Vasant Vihar. We don't even segregate our waste. And this is the diplomatic area here in Delhi. So if I didn't do it, I wouldn't really know what happens with the waste. And isn't that where it really starts? With us. So all of us, I believe, can not only and should not only sign papers and try and implement policies, but should also try to get more people on board by talking about it more, by reaching out proactively and not assuming it will come. It will not come. Unless we change our behavior from where we are right now, we are not going to accelerate. How? So I think we need to think of what we can do differently as an individual person, but also in the organization. Can we maybe sign our papers a little bit faster? Can we maybe try and convince those that are not really listening a bit better and a bit more and go the extra mile? I really think that if all of us are doing a bit more and trying to get more into our boats, then we can sail much faster, and there is hope. There's always hope. Umid hamesha hai, hamesha. And I have not given up hope. So I think that if everybody can make a commitment to reflect on that, besides all of the wonderful speeches and this wonderful organization, we have to pull up our socks and have to move. And the time is now, not tomorrow, today, even though it's a Friday. And there's the weekend coming. Maybe we can think about it. So I wish all of you all the best. We will do it together. I'll be here for another little while in India. Yes, I will stick it out. And it's no problem. I'm here to do exactly that. Thank you very much. And hamesha umid hai. Merely aapke liye bhi hai.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vivier, and I think very powerful call to action, reminiscent of, for example, the Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see, and Prime Minister Modi's Lifestyles for the Environment Agency, each and every one of us taking action in our daily lives and the multiplier effect of that. So thank you. I think I would like now to invite Dr. Soumya Swaminathan to share thoughts with us. She is both, she's chairperson of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, a renowned pediatrician, expert, global expert in TB and HIV research, and others. Of course, we in the UN system, we're very privileged to have Dr. Swaminathan as WHO's chief scientist for some time, I think spokesperson during the pandemic, COVID pandemic as well. So, Dr. Swaminathan, perhaps just a lead-in question. How do you see, data is sort of the new oil, as they say. How can data-driven policies improve the challenges, the response to challenges that you're addressing in the foundation? Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Sharp, and we've had some excellent talks just preceding in this session, so I don't want to repeat what's been said before, and I agree with everything that's been said about the need to work more efficiently, work faster, work collaboratively, reduce redundancies and duplication, and involve all partners as we move ahead. So I want to maybe answer that question with a few examples, very concrete examples. And I'd like to take, first of all, the issue of air pollution as something which is linked to climate. It's linked to multiple SDGs. It's linked to, of course, human health, most of all. And I think many of us don't recognize the extent to which the pollutants in the air, PM 2.5, but also things like SO2, NO2, ozone, sulfur oxides, methane, all of these are actually, and black carbon are contributing to not just respiratory issues that everybody will immediately, of course, say, yeah, I've got a bad throat or a cough, but heart attacks, brain degeneration, like faster onset of dementia, Parkinson's, diabetes. So basically, these particles we breathe in, the PM 2.5 goes into the blood and sets up an inflammatory response. And as you know, inflammation is the worst thing for the human body. And a large part of the chronic disease that we all suffer from today is thanks to the environmental risks that we are all exposed to, which are growing, by the way, with microplastics and other things also increasing. So I think this is where data comes in and where we need to take an airshed approach, because the pollutants are not just coming from one sector and also vary from one state or one region to another. For example, if you take the whole Indo-Gangetic plain, we know that in the winter months, you know, because of the movement of air, the inversion, that things settle down here, and that multiple analyses have shown that a lot of the pollutants are coming from the transport sector, obviously from industry, construction, very important. For some time in the year only it is stubble burning, but one neglected one is a solid fuel use, biomass for cooking. And it is very surprising to many people that up to 50 to 60% of outdoor air pollution is coming from indoor. And the indoor pollution obviously is impacting women much more because they are the ones who are sitting next to this fire and the smoke and cooking along with their young children. So attention to just this one, just let's say take the fuel for cooking alone. That alone, if we were to completely phase out biomass and ensure clean energy access, today it's LPG, that's the cleanest alternative we have. May not be the most ideal, but right now we don't have a clean energy source that will reach every home in India or in large parts of Africa for that matter. And so for now, I think to address the SDGs of gender equality, SDG 3, energy, all of them, and reduce air pollution, we have this solution that we just need to come together and figure out how we're going to do that. And this is where the data really helps, because it tells us what action can have how much impact. You know, you can go after stubble burning, it's important, but it will have limited impact on the air pollution levels of the Indo-Gangetic plain because it's for a limited time and it's a limited contribution. I'd like to take one more example, and that's around antimicrobial resistance. Again, it's called a silent pandemic because we have antibiotic drug resistance increasing, bacteria, but also fungi, and of course viruses all develop drug resistance. And this is where you need a One Health approach, because a lot of the antibiotic resistance is being driven partly, of course, by human beings and the way we are using antibiotics irrationally, the way that they are, distributed without prescription, quite often consumed haphazardly, and the scientific protocols are not followed. So we do need a lot of action on the human health side, in hospitals, in pharmacies, in communities. But we also need action on the animal side, livestock, poultry, as well as aquaculture, fisheries, agriculture, where antibiotics are used quite often as growth promoters or as prevention of infection rather than as treatment. And when you use the same antibiotics that are used in humans in animals, these antibiotics are then prevalent in the environment. Same thing happens also from the flow of, let's say, hospital waste from factories and companies that are maybe manufacturing antibiotics but letting the raw material go out into the water bodies, contaminating the water and the soil, and promoting resistance. So it's a very complex, and you know, the predictions are that by 2050, that if we don't do anything, we could go back to the pre-antibiotic era, where if you got an infection, basically, it was nature. You either survived or you died, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. And it's very frightening to think that one could go back, you know, to the 18th century where, you know, people died, and even 19th where people died of infections. So it's only in the last 80 years we've had antibiotics, but we've already abused them so much that, you know, we're running out. There isn't enough R&D happening to replace and bring us new antibiotics. So I think this is where, again, an integrated One Health approach, where you use data to tell you where the problem is, use new technologies like genomics, like artificial intelligence, you know, to gather data. In the WHO, we were using AI essentially to look at publications from all over the world in any language, any newspaper, any article, to pick up signals of outbreaks. So some kind of active listening that AI can do, but also AI can be used to look at large data sets and make sense of them so that we target our interventions. So maybe with these two examples, I'll stop, and then, you know, we can come back with many more. I think Julie and others have already spoken about agriculture and climate resilient agriculture, where we're not looking only at yields anymore, but we also have to look at nutrition. And we have to look at how climate resilient they are, how much water they're consuming, and whether they're actually benefiting the farmers who are growing the crops. So again, a lot of work being done in that space as well, to not only develop new varieties, but also to adopt agricultural practices that are environment friendly and that can also promote the health and nutrition of the farming families. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swaminathan, and really drawing attention to this intersection of so many different health and environment and economy. And you know, what you said, this is probably the one moment of the year when you're not actually just, you know, hammered on your, in front of your eyes about the realities of climate in Delhi, the air pollution, and this magical moment when it's so nice out. But you know, it goes below 150 on the AQI or something, and you're rejoicing. But I just recall, I was really astonished. You talked about the not using clean cooking fuels and the impact indoors. And it's only because we have, I mean, I'm speaking about my home, that we have air purifiers in the different rooms with the little monitors there, that I was even aware of that firsthand, because, you know, you're cooking something, it's maybe burning a bit, so, and you see that monitor going crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the same, looking like the same level of impact, maybe not exactly particulates or whatnot, but as the really bad air pollution outside, you have that until it gets kind of aired out. So that's really brought to mind the impact of cooking without clean fuels. So it's my pleasure now, next, to turn to Mr. Hiroshi Ono, who is the Executive Director for the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. Mr. Hiroshi has joined Japan's Environmental Agency previously before, so over his career he's had a number of key positions in senior levels, including Director General of the Global Environment Bureau and Vice Minister for Global Environment Affairs as well. So if I could ask you, Sor, just again in this role, in this all-important moment of international collaboration and cooperation, how can Japan help strengthen collaboration between developed and developing countries? Trilateral, the various forms of cooperation that you see taking us forward. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Shombi. So it's better for me to use microphone as well?
Oh, sorry, yes. Of course.
Because you get used to the karaoke style, so I think it's a little bit more comfortable for me to use the microphone as well. So thank you very much, Shombi, and I'm from the Institute for Global Environment Strategies, we call it the IGES. And the TERI and IGES has had a very long-standing cooperation, partnership over the last couple of decades. So that's why I was, invited to this very important forum, and I'm very happy to be with you all. A little bit broaden your questions and the Japan's perspective. That IGES is working for the global, the strategies as well as the Asia-Pacific perspective. I'd like to extend my, kind of this, answering the questions by the Asia-Pacific perspective. I do understand that there is a close interlinkage between goals and targets of SDGs. And I do understand that the goals and targets themselves will capture the Sustainable Development Agenda currently and in the future. But biggest challenge, I think all of you may agree, is the implementation of its goals and targets. I heard some, the video message from UN colleagues, and they stressed that many of the goals and targets have not met yet, and of course it is a little bit, discouraging, trend of those goals and targets. So how can we improve our implementation of those goals and targets? Of course, we need money, but the total amount of money is quite limited. So how we can accommodate the needs of the implementation? One solution is to, how can I say, make sure the financial flow diverted to sustainable development goals. So that we the Sustainable Development Goals can entertain ourselves more, money flow. And another possibility is to increase the efficiency of, the usage of money, so that we can, make use of more money for our implementation. And another challenge or barriers for us in terms of not only Japan, but also all over the world, is that the kind of difficulties in transformational changes. Because we all understand that it is quite difficult promptly to change our labor forces, human resources into one way to another. So we usually need time, skills, capacity development, others, so that we need as quick as possible transformational change of labor forces. IGES is looking at those challenges in a different different dimensions, and we currently argue that the two, the keywords. The one is the synergies, and another one is just transition. So I think those two keywords are quite important now and in the future to improve our implementation of sustainable development goals. Probably the standing budgetary and appropriation system in government and Congress may hinder those wise use of budget, and the difficulties in quite quick transition of human resources may hinder our drastic changes of our socio-economic systems. In terms of those synergies and just transitions, you all may heard many times in the just transitions, but some of you may not such often heard about the synergies issues. Enhancing synergies and avoiding trade-offs between interlinked goals and transitions could enhance our efficiency in using money and using our limited resources. And just transitions can ease the social problems associated with changing labor forces. So that we need to, in our view, we need to, address the issues of enhancing synergies, as well as enhancing the practice of just transition could be a key issues in improving our implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. One aspect I would like to emphasize is just a collaboration between not only between North and South, but also for the collaboration between all countries at all levels, because we all agree that the interlinkage of the goals and transitions. I would emphasize the role of local governments, subnational governments, and local communities on top of the national governments, because local governments are sometimes, or many times, more innovative and more flexible than national governments. I hope that there are no national governments represented here, but I do think that the local mayors, governors are quite unique and enthusiastic about changing their own situation. So the local actors are quite important. In addition to that, I'd like to also emphasize the regional collaboration. Because if you look at the many countries in the, for example, in the Asia-Pacific region, there are quite a lot of similarities, commonalities among countries. So I think countries can learn each other, looking at other countries' good practices, best practices, so that regional collaboration is quite important. IGES, our institute, is now proposing to publish a kind of synergy report for our Asia-Pacific region, collecting many good best practices among the region, so that we can share those information among ourselves. And those initiatives are currently supported by UN bodies, UNESCAP, UNEP, ADBs, and others. And also, I would like to encourage TERI colleagues to be part of those endeavor, taking this opportunity. So I think those are the points I'd like to make. And in terms of your coming back to your first question of how to bridge between, the Japan and other countries. So this is a quite tricky issues because Japan is no more rich enough, as you may, imagine. And India is getting richer and richer, and some other countries are getting richer and richer. So we need a mutual collaboration rather than the one way, the transfer of technology, transfer of knowledge. I think we do need mutual learning, mutual collaboration, and the mutual support in terms of the capacity of each countries. So I will stop here, and then thank you again for your opportunities.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ono, and it's a good question for the organizers. Maybe the karaoke is coming afterwards, as you said. I won't possibly rap like back in the days when I was a teenager, something like that. We'll save that for next. since time is running shy. So, but thank you for those points. Synergies, just transition, absolutely critical. So, very pleased next to welcome Dr. Purvi Mehta, global expert in agriculture and climate strategy, senior advisor for global growth and opportunities at the Gates Foundation. And you know, I have a question here, but I think really let me just leave it to you to share with us your vision on where we need to go and how to get there.
Is this on? Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm going to pick up from what you said, and you called us at an inflection point right now, and I think that's very, very true. The inflection point where I think, of course, there are lots of persistent challenges that we have not even begun to solve, and you know, the speakers before me, and this is an advantage of being one of the last speakers, right, spoke about some of the challenges that persist. It spoke about how we are running as a world way behind what we aspire to achieve in the SDGs and so forth. But at the inflection point, let's also think about what do we have in the world to address some of these things. And I was thinking, last summit, which was about a year ago, I was here, and last 1 year, there has been some very interesting changes in the world. The geopolitics has changed. Our way, especially as development sector people, our way of looking at international development has changed. Relationship between countries have changed. A lot of those things have changed. But at the same time, I think what brings a lot of hope is the developing countries themselves stepping up. And that's a very, very interesting change that we have seen rather rapidly, right? If one looks at Africa, for example, in last 1 year, that is 2024, till the data came out on 20th of January. So 2024, Africa had mobilized roughly $26.7 billion on climate-related work. I am not saying this was enough. There is a huge gap between what is needed and what has been mobilized, especially because a large part of this money is going into two things. One is in diagnosing the problem further rather than talking about the solution, and two, in creating pilots of solution rather than scaling up technologies and solutions, right? So it's absolutely not enough, but at the same time, one should also realize that $26 billion is not a trivial amount of money. So there is an increasing felt need about climate. I think you know, we are a community. Everyone here have somehow or another represented the issue of climate, and our perception about that has changed. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we used to go to forums, we used to go to, say, policymakers and only talk about how big a problem is. Now, I think we are getting into the phase of a felt need and talking about then how do we address that. So I think that's a very, very big change. In last 1 year now, when we think about it, today 86 countries around the world have some kind of a dedicated climate program, whether in form of a NAP, which is the National Adaptation Plans, or a dedicated ministry on climate, and so forth. So how do we, as a community, yes, of course, be very, very cognizant of the problems that we need to solve and we haven't solved, but at the same time, how do we leverage upon this momentum that is generating in the world, right? And sustainability and looking at that, I think there are of course, ecological sustainability, but also a very important reason why climate and sustainability is becoming a felt need is an economic one, right? If one looks at 30 deadliest weather events that are recorded ever in the history, out of those 30, 9 were recorded in last 13 months in the world, right? This is what is bringing that cognizance. This is what is bringing that, time-sensitive need for action. And it's a very simple thing. Dr. Swaminathan, you mentioned about agriculture. Julie, you mentioned about agriculture. Other colleagues mentioned about agriculture. It's a very simple thing, right? If one looks at one household, say for example an XYZ Eastern Indian state, right, with 1.5 degrees higher temperature, the crop production of that household goes down by anywhere between 7 to 10%. 7 to 10% lower crop production in the season translates into around an average 23% lower income of the farmer. All that cumulates into 12% lower GDP of a country. So it's a very, very, so the economic angle to that is very profound, and I think we as people working on science, we have sometimes underestimated that economic angle as a very important scalability mechanism. So I think, yes, absolutely, collective action, absolutely cross-sectoral collaboration, all of that is very important, but let's also look at what we already have in terms of course, technology and tools and so forth, but not to underestimate the momentum that the world and especially developing countries have on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mehta, and I absolutely couldn't agree more. I mean, the world has changed dramatically. The old typologies don't fit, and as you've seen, developing world, global south, however we call it, is increasingly coming forward with solutions and resources, and of course, I mean, here in India, we've seen that at an incredible scale, and I would just simply add that we're very pleased in the UN in India here to have just launched a partnership with Gates Foundation together with the Ministry of External Affairs of India to help amplify Indian South-South cooperation, very much along the lines of what you were outlining. So, dear colleagues, I know time is getting a bit short. We have not, last but definitely not least, my dear colleague from the United Nations Environment Program, Ms. Dachin Shering, who's always a pleasure to have you here in town. And of course, UN Environment are kind of, they're leading, all of our agencies are engaged in sustainability in different ways. But UN Environment is very much there at the forefront, the global authority on environment and programming. So over to you, and then hopefully we can have a couple minutes for Q&A.
Thank you very much, Shombi. And it's really a pleasure to go at the end. So we've really heard a lot. We've heard about, Ono-san talked about synergies. And when you start to look at tackling climate, tackling nature, tackling pollution and waste, it has to be an approach that's integrated. You now have the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework under the Convention of Biological Diversity that have targets related to nature-based solutions on climate, that have targets on nitrogen related to pollution and waste. So I think more and more, the approaches of addressing them are integrated. And these, at the intergovernmental level, there's something called the burn process, and really looking at the different MEAs. But it also comes down to all of you. We find that whether you're in national government, you're sitting in research institutions, you're really looking at things in silo. And I think the approach is really an integrated, multidisciplinary sort of approach. My colleague, Dr. Pema Jamso, sitting, Director General of ISIMO, talked yesterday about the third pole, water towers of Asia. And he talked about how glaciers that feed major river systems, Indus, Ganges, Brahmaputra, and we're talking about glacial melt, erratic weather patterns. I think Purvi already talked about 1.5 degree increase in temperature. And there's an overshoot. I mean, it's no longer can we stay within 1.5 degrees. Can we stay between 2.4 to 3 degrees. So the overshoot is happening, and the real implications to our economy. This year is the International Year of Glacier Preservation, and I think it's really an important time, and I'm really honored that I have the Secretary General of SAARC, who talked about regional cooperation. But for the Hindu Kush Himalayas, a council, I mean, you're talking about, critical river systems, melting of glaciers. We have to come together in South Asia. We have to start dialogue. And of course, we have the political level. We have research institutions, and it's an honor that TERI brings us all together. So we can really talk about it. And, agricultural impact, if you look at, glacial melt, our river systems, economic strain, you're talking about damage to infrastructure. When you've had heavy monsoons in 2022, and the implications, sorry. And you're talking about health risks. I mean, Dr. Soumya's already talked about health risks, but you're talking about flooding, water scarcity, and you're talking about energy security, hydropower generation. So I think it's really, for governments, researchers, communities, really to start to look at climate resilient policies, sustainable water management, early warning systems for flood, for glacial lake outburst floods. We're talking about, keeping the glaciers, trying to freeze it, and then trying to soak it, having forests. And I think this is, and I hope, our Honorable Secretary General of SAARC will really start to reinvigorate this in the sub-region. The UNFCCC processes have, and I think, often you wonder whether these processes make sense. You go to the 29th Conference of Parties in Baku, and it had over 70,000 participants, but it matters because what it does is it talks about funds, it talks about the finance needed, and you're looking at 1.3 trillion and a target of 300 billion. So you're really looking at what are the finances that are needed. And other processes that come up, countries are developing national adaptation plans. And if you start to look at in our region, in the sub-region, the countries here talking about NAPS, they've talked about water security, they've talked about agricultural resilience. You're talking about things that do matter. We have to, I think, get away from the jargon if you talk about NAPS and NBSAPs, and it doesn't relate. I think we have to make sure that we translate it into the economics, but the social aspects, the equity aspects, because when you talk about the adverse impacts of climate, it's the most vulnerable, it's the elderly, it's the children, it's the poor communities. And people have said we're all in the same storm, but we're definitely in different boats. Some boats are right at the edge. Soumya's talked about air pollution, and if you talk about black carbon, so what does black carbon do? Deposits on glaciers, on the mountains, they melt faster. And so this really sort of this co-benefit between tackling climate change, addressing air pollution. And so we're talking about what do we need to shift? Soumya's talked a lot about, indoor cooking, open burning. These are solutions we do know. We know the impact of air pollution on the cryosphere, snow, ice, frozen ground. We know the deposits on glaciers. We know it accelerates melting. And we do know that we have to tackle short-lived climate pollutants. We have to look at things like methane, ground-level ozone, the devastating impacts on agriculture. We're not talking about it in a way it matters to people. If you start to talk about ground-level ozone and agriculture and your livelihood, we will take action. This is not something we are doing for someone else. So methane, I think, is one of the most, UNEP has something called an International Emission Methane Observatory, and we have a satellite that measures in real time methane leaks. And we give out these notifications. So the last few years, we gave out 1,200 notifications. And 2 of these notifications, when we addressed the leaks, closed the equivalent of 1 million cars for a year in emissions. And we have the oil and gas methane partnership, and these are, a lot of it are, Shell, Total, the CEOs, really addressing these leakages. So I think there's a lot that we can do with technology. So my message is, can we focus on glacier preservation with the Secretary General, and can we look at air pollution? And I think the time now is really not to talk about all these important frameworks, but really to set a few realistic targets. On air pollution, we're talking about The fact that most of us, some of us have it in our laws, some have it in constitutions, but we don't have, we have the WHO 2021 air quality guidelines. None of us, you know, even the minimum guidelines we don't meet. So the fact is, if we can start to monitor data, to source apportionment, have a loose regulatory instrument at the Asia-Pacific level, and so we can tackle some of this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dechen. I think that was very nicely kind of round up, looking at the different levels and the intergovernmental, from the convention level down to the ground level, and UNEP here together with your own country team, you know, we work with government, support government on their quality action planning, and you know, a lot of these issues that have been addressed. Colleagues, I know we're just now beyond time, although out of just, talking about just transitions, out of fairness, I'm pretty sure we started a bit late. Do we have time for at least one question? I don't know to the organizers if we're going to be cut off or what, but I'd like to take one question. Okay, here we are, please. And if you could specify who you're addressing it to. I don't know if there's a microphone. Here? Where you can, yeah. Okay, here you go.
It's not working. Hello? Yeah, it's working. It wasn't working. That one. Hello all panelists, respected speakers. My name is Ashwini Dudeja, and I really appreciate Madam Sharing, Madam Soumya, and Madam Julie to raise the point for taking actions today. As I happen to learn by grace of God that future is now, in present. Future will also come in present, isn't it? My question is that, my name is Ashwini Dudeja, and I'm making solar home light kits, smokeless cook stoves, biomass, and we are going to make solar-based smokeless cook stoves also. Now, the demand is high in India, Africa, Sri Lanka, in other Asian countries, but the supply is less. Why? I know it. I know it. You also know it, because of less of funding. Now, the question is, what we have to do? We know what we have to do. We have to take action. But the thing is that what is the lacking? Where is the lacking? What is stopping us to take action? I'm practically working on it. If you give me opportunity, I'm ready to work with you 24/7. Anywhere, in any country. Thank you. Kindly support.
Excuse me? Sir, a very important question because of this session is integrated action. Actually, whose control or which factors control and cost of the high development cost for innovative? No, here. I'm sorry. Okay, all are seated with, that's what I also seated here. No, who is control or which factors control the cost of high development cost for innovative medicines? That is my question.
Thank you. And sorry, was that addressed to somebody particular?
Yes, ma'am. Saudi ma'am is maybe.
Okay, sorry.
Maybe is.
I didn't hear. I will just quickly take one more question, then that's it. We went to the young woman right in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am Jyotishma Medhi, and I actually wrote down the question, so I'd like to read it to you. If you had to prioritize one unpopular policy or action that would have the greatest positive impact on sustainability, even if it faced significant political or social resistance, what would it be? And this is an open question. I'm up for answers, as many answers as possible. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for. So let me just go now to the panelists. I think there was one question directed already. Perhaps we can take that to start. And then if anybody would like to jump in on the other two questions, please. Dr. Swaminathan.
I think your question was on the cost of producing drugs, right? Yeah. So why is it so expensive? Yes. So a couple of issues here. One, of course, is that pharmaceutical companies ultimately are doing it for profit because they are companies, they are owned by shareholders. Shareholders want profit, so that's what they're driven by. And the larger and the bigger, the more they're looking at that kind of pharmaceutical development. So this is why two things happen. One is that what they produce may be expensive, and of course they're also patent protecting it. But the other thing is they may not necessarily be doing R&D and producing drugs that are needed for public health in countries in the global south. So this is why I think we need a new model of R&D that can be led by India and countries like India, the BRICS countries perhaps, where we prioritize what we need to protect our populations, and the government and the private sector jointly invest in developing those products, and also we do sharing of technology, South-South sharing of technology. That's what we were promoting at the WHO through the mRNA technology transfer program, but I think that needs to go way beyond mRNA and be applied to all other life-saving technologies, including for climate. Thanks.
Thank you. And sorry, I know we I think there was a question about the policies and also about solar panels, what's stopping us. But would you like to jump in, Julie?
Well, the money, the first gentleman talked about money, that you are ready to roll, that action needs to be happening now. That's correct. Well, the sources for your funding need to be diversified. Yeah, so I really would like to say that it's important to look beyond the current donors or clients that you have, because if the source that you are normally working with is not enough, you need to diversify. I, for instance, also think that the private sector needs to be much more present in sessions like this. I do not know how many people of the private sectors are here, but we heard from pretty much every speaker that we can't do it alone. The private sector needs to be there as well. So I think diversification is extremely important. And the third one that normally is not being talked about, this is to everybody sitting here on the dais and in the audience. We have pretty much only spoken about economic sectors and talked about technologies. But we also need to think about the human beings behind it all, and the capacities of those who are supposed to be implementing whatever it is are usually not enough. So the skills, it is assumed that the skills are coming from somewhere. Donor-wise, there are almost no funds flowing into skills development in terms of skills development, not capacity building. And if that sector is not being taken up, including the green skills sector, we are really going to miss out. And that is something that I would like for everybody to push more, because without the laborers that are skilled and know what they're doing, we are not really going to make it. And the more people we have, as I said earlier, on board, the better it is. But that sector is really something that is a bit forgotten, and we need to push that and put it into the foreground a bit more. So you need skill.
Yeah.
So work with the skilled sector.
Okay, thank you. So,
they might help you.
thank you so much. Yes, perhaps just quickly.
Yeah, just about the actions. Yes, there are a couple of actions which require a huge amount of money. That's true, but there are many actions which don't need any money, and sometimes it's those are beneficial for you. And if you look at if you have some a little bit longer perspective, the actions, the investment can pay off. So I think those kind of information can be should be made available for all the practitioners as well as citizens, so that I think we have a lot of opportunities without any additional cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to jump in on this? Or?
Well, on the policy
Please,
side,
yes.
I think if there was one policy I would pick, would be to promote livestock sector and make it much more efficient. Because, for the integrated farming system perspective also, India, for example, over 80% of India's milk does not come from livestock farmers. It comes from crop farmers who also happen to keep a livestock. So the integration of development and integration of policy there would be very important for the sector.
Excellent, great. Did you? Okay, perhaps.
maybe an answer to the colleague who talked about, where can you find financing if you have an innovative idea? There's a lot of green startups that you're looking at. There's under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, everyone knows the financial mechanism, the Global Environment Facility, Green Climate Fund. There's a technology mechanism, the Climate Technology Center Network. And there are many institutions, including TERI, that's a network member. And what network members do, a country would want to, invest, they get some funds, and then network members can actually, put in a bid to work there. So I think there are lots of good opportunities. The Global Green Growth Institute has a lot of, small-scale funding. I think the funding is available, but as my colleague said, in India, you have the UNEP Finance Initiative, 300 banks, insurance companies. We only have one bank in India that's a part of the finance initiative. And many of these other large banks in other parts of the world do a lot of positive impact investing. And I think the challenge really is to get more of the financial institutions, banks, insurance companies really to start to provide financing. Many of the large banks have now stress tested their portfolio for climate change, and that really looks at where they put resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Last thought?
Yes, since I represent the regional organization SARC, I was actually listening to all the intervention from the colleagues here, and those are quite thought-provoking as well as educative as well. So I was thinking that South Asia, being one of the most vibrant region in terms of its economic development and its prospect, we are coming short in one aspect, which is setting, all the member countries have their own set of targets on various sectors, but we are coming short while making a regional target which can be achieved regionally. Like Europe has targeted to do away with the fossil fuel by 2030, and they are progressing quite well. But unfortunately, despite having so much of potentials in South Asia, within South Asia, and beyond, we are not able to get united and try to set a target for the region and work unitedly. I think this is one of the takeaways which I'll taking from here, and I request you, since most of the participants here are from South Asia, to keep it in mind and also see how best we can achieve this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think that's a wonderful thought, I think, to end on. And I'd like to thank this incredible panel. Everybody, please, some applause. It's very clear we know what to do, and there is enough money in the world, but it's about aligning investments correctly, and it's about all the things we can do through synergies that isn't just about money. And as I like to say here quite often, it's very clear that SDGs दुनिया में मुमकिन होंगी क्योंकि Global South में मुमकिन होंगी. We have the reasons to be optimistic. So thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
As we close this compelling session, on behalf of TERI, I extend our sincere gratitude to our esteemed speakers and to all of you for your participation. We will now take a brief 10-minute break before proceeding with the valedictory session. May we kindly request you to come back here in the hall after 10 minutes. Thank you.